Well, hi once again, everybody. Great to be back with you on another edition of Pick Your Politics, where, of course, we love to talk politics. We love to talk with politicians. We love to get their ideas, their philosophies about what they envision and what they can do to help this country in some of the major issues that we are facing today. We've got a great show for you. We got a gentleman back who's one of our favorite guests because he's intelligent. He's just creative. He's very decisive about what he believes and about what he does. And he's turned out to be one of our favorite guests. I'll tell you about him in just a minute. Next couple of weeks, by the way, we have a very good race that's heating up in Las Vegas already for the mayor of Las Vegas, which I think is a great title. If you're going to be a mayor, you could be, in the Poconos, Ohio or something. But if you're the mayor of Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world, I think it's a great title, and it's a lot of work, but it's going to be a very heated race. We have two great women on 1 week following each other that are both smart, both intelligent, both ambitious. So make sure you tune in for those because I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. And we're going to get more of the candidates on as they declare. Let me tell you about our guest today, Mr. Larry Klayman, who is an attorney at law, who is in private practice. He is a former United States Justice Department prosecutor. Larry was the founder of both Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch, which you're probably familiar with. He received his law degree from Emory University School of Law, which is a darn good one. Larry also attended Duke University and received a BA in both political science and French literature. Larry ran for the U.S. Senate in 2004, but lost the Republican primary. He is the author of 3 books, along with periodic columns that he would write for various conservative websites. So without further ado, let's bring up our special guest, Mr. Larry Klayman. And Larry, thanks. I know that you're extremely busy doing a lot of stuff. We love having you. Thanks for taking time out to do the show.
Well, you're welcome, my good friend. Thank you for that very nice introduction.
Larry, as you know very, very well, there are a hell of a lot of areas in golf that a lawyer can practice in or specialize in. Civil law, criminal law, family law, labor law, et cetera, et cetera. What area of law do you think might be the toughest and why?
They're all tough. I mean, the problem is these days, and I got a very good judge down there in Palm Beach County, Florida, where I brought an antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, which is otherwise known as the European Tour,
right,
Golf Channel, owned by NBC, and also the official Golf World Ranking. I got a very good judge. But all of these areas of law, if you practice it in a serious way, are equally as difficult, or not difficult, as you might want to see it. But antitrust is part of my background. I helped break up AT&T when I was with the Justice Department, the telephone company. That's why I have all your cell phones and other types of equipment and services today. And I believe in competition. And one of the things that has gotten me involved with regard to being a lawyer in the golf industry, and I love golf. At one time, I was even a scratch player when I was 18. I'm not quite that now. I'm an 8 handicap now. But the fact is that the fight between LIV and the fight between the PGA Tour is a fight for free enterprise. It's a fight for competition.
Right.
And there is no reason why the two golf leagues can't exist and compete against each other. And of course, Dennis, this is kind of the segue to some of the things that we might want to talk about today, is that we see the fruits of that competition, even for the PGA Tour, which in my view has violated the competition laws in a very serious way.
Yeah.
But just yesterday, or at least this week anyway, the PGA Tour had to up its ante in terms of providing money to players. They created a format for 8 of their high-tier events, which is very similar to
Right.
LIV. They basically concede that LIV has a good model. And they are in fact providing more benefit for rich players now than other types of players. But nevertheless, that created competition, live
Yeah.
coming into the marketplace.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And we're going to get into that in a little more depth, but I just want to ask you a different type of question. You've been described by a lot of people as really loving litigation, and that's all well and good. Some lawyers like it, some lawyers hate it. Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure that I love litigation. I actually would rather settle things. But in today's world, no one settles anything. There's no give. And you have to fight for what you believe in. And that's why I am a litigator, because I'm in court every single day fighting. Frankly, I'm dealing with a lot of lawyers who aren't honest. I'm dealing with many judges who are not honest, particularly on the federal bench. And I guess that's in your bones. It's in your body. I mean, I'm wearing a hat from Trump National.
Right.
I think in some ways, President Trump and I have some similarities in that we're fighters. And that's the only way in today's world that you can get anywhere, unfortunately. But I would rather settle things amicably, but that just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to do, and that makes perfect sense. Larry, what's the criteria you use when it comes to selecting the type of cases that you take on?
I have to believe in my client. I'm an ideologue. I will not represent someone who I don't feel is ethically or morally up to par, no pun intended, with
Right.
golf. I won't represent anyone who, in any way, I can't feel 100% affinity towards. So that's the key point. I've never done what I do for money. You can see that by going to freedomwatchusa.org and my law firm at larryklayman.com. It's the Klayman Law Group, PA, Professional Association, incorporated in Florida, where's my home state. So that's the criteria for me. Now, there are certain areas of law that interest me more. That was your first question.
Right.
Antitrust is one of them. Competition law. International trade has been an area that I've done a lot of. I've done a lot of intellectual property, which deals with competition, contracts. And lately, I've become, in the last many years, an expert on defamation. With the way the media is today, with public figures and others being defamed, including yours truly, because it happens to me all the time, that has become a real specialty in the law. And it's a tough fight when you're dealing with a public figure, but it can be won. And you saw that most recently with Johnny Depp, who
Right.
got a $1 million judgment, and another client of mine who I represented for a while down there in Alabama, Judge Roy Moore, got an $8 million verdict. These people were severely defamed. And right now I have two lawsuits that I brought on behalf of Patrick Reed, who was a good man, extremely honest, great family, but the golf media had to find someone to pick on over all these years. And it's time that Patrick fought back, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into that. And he's being well represented with you in his corner. So let's get into a little bit of politics, if you will, because after all, that's what we do on the show, pick your politics. Let me start off and ask you this. Why, Larry, do you think that politics has become very precedent today in sports? And is that going to cause problems for various sports in the future?
Politics has been true in every profession, okay? And, Ronald Reagan used to say it's the second oldest profession that gives the first oldest profession a bad name. And he was talking about politicians, frankly, being less trustworthy than prostitutes.
Yeah.
To be honest. It infects everything. And it's unfortunate that that's the case. And that's what I was telling you about the fact that I am ideological. I do believe in a ethical and moral justice system. But unfortunately, as I write in my new book, it takes a counter-revolution Wake Up America that you can get at freedomwatchusa.org and all booksellers online, is that federal judges in particular have become so politicized, they get on the bench through political campaign contributions.
Yeah.
That then trickles down to the rest of society. But politics is just a normal aspect of any aspect of life. And it's something which creeps into virtually everything. I mean, and to get back to the golf analogy, you've got, the PGA Tour hiring lobbyists,
Right.
hiring public relations firms to smear LIV players with all kinds of names, acceptors of blood money, cavorting with terrorists, everything else. This is politics, and it is frankly despicable. I like to try to keep politics out of what I do, but unfortunately, it's something that I have to deal with.
Right. Absolutely. You and I both love golf, as you mentioned. So I want to ask you, so what in the world precipitated all of this craziness that's going on? And you're right in the middle of it. This craziness that's going on between the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour and the DP Tour. I mean, certainly there had to be a degree of politics before LIV started, but it just seems to have exploded, Larry. And people are shaking their heads going, how did this all get started? Where's it going? Where's it going to end? What's it going to take?
Called money. The PGA Tour has a monopoly. They have an absolute monopoly. They effectively purchased the DP World Tour. They own estimated about 40% of it in latest infusions that went into it. The DP World Tour being the European Tour.
Right.
They don't want to give ground because, frankly, they're a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise. So they don't want any competition. So when LIV started to be able to get players who are at a very high level, and LIV has really great players per capita, they have better players than the PGA Tour. If you look at who's there, in terms of percent,
All right.
they got scared. And then, of course, then Golf Channel, which you can turn it on and watch the Chiron at the bottom, home of the PGA Tour.
Right.
Huge contract, NBC, ESPN, CBS, LIV, upset their monopoly. And there is a collusion there. And that's what my case in Palm Beach is all about. It's about that collusion. I brought it on behalf of Florida golf fans, of which I'm one, consumers. And we complained that the lessening of competition by virtue of these anti-competitive acts, and even though the PGA Tour now is trying to compete, it has lessened it. You can't see LIV players this week at the Players' Championship.
Right.
You're going to pay higher prices because of the lack of competition. The prices went up about 35%.
Really? Wow.
These are anti-competitive acts
Wow.
have occurred. And this case was brought in the public interest. It's a class action for Florida consumers. And what we're trying to do is to further free enterprise and an opportunity. And one thing that people need to understand, LIV has been trashed by the PGA Tour and its sycophants, its agents, for being financed by the Saudi Public Investment Fund.
Right.
The Saudi Public Investment Fund owned large shares of stock in Walt Disney, in Boeing, in Apple, in all kinds of enterprises in the United States. I think about 30% in the United States. Saudi Arabia is our ally. It is one of our best allies. It's where we get our oil. The
Right.
prince is trying to open the country up to the 21st century. Why do you want to trash them? But it doesn't happen anywhere else. For instance, the LPGA Tour, heavily financed by Aramco, the
Right.
Saudi oil company. They don't go after them because that would be goring the ox of the Me Too movement, of female golfers. And they don't go after anybody else that's involved, whether it's the Premier League in Europe or whatever else. The PGA Tour is being run as, in my view, as a racketeering enterprise. And this is why it will not tolerate competition. The head of the PGA Tour makes a whole bunch of money, and it's dependent upon the continuation of that organization. And we don't wish the PGA Tour any harm. I don't wish it any harm. But let other people compete.
Right.
Leave LIV alone and leave the players alone. They're just playing as golfers.
Right.
They're not in any way implicated in anything else.
Correct. And I agree with you totally. We've talked about it before, how competition is good. Briefly, Larry, before we take our break, bring us up to speed on, there's been so much happening in your case in Florida. Where does it stand now? Where are you going next with it?
We're going into discovery. Now, we've been fighting with the other side. They're deathly afraid that of our taking the deposition of Roy McIlroy, Tiger Woods, and Davis Love III, who are at the forefront of the acts to try to destroy LIV Golf. And I mean, they even bragged about it early on. If you might use a phrase, they're kind of out of their league. They didn't realize what they were doing or what they were saying in terms of the legal implications. So we're going into discovery, not just with them, but with the PGA Tour, with the DP World Tour, with OWGR, which has denied world ranking points to LIV golfers, and also with Golf Channel, which is basically the media arm of this anti-competitive conduct. So it's going to be very revealing. Again, what we're looking for is competition. We're not looking to hurt anybody. We just want to see an open market for golf fans to be able to participate and to enjoy the game of golf as spectators. And I myself, I'm a Florida golf spectator. I've been to a number of tournaments this year, run by the PGA Tour, as a matter of fact, because that gives me standing to bring the case.
Sure.
And I also want to see what's going on there. And I got to tell you, some of these events have been very poorly attended because the PGA Tour has robbed those events of high-level players, the players who were playing on LIV. And it's a shame. It really is a shame.
Yeah, it is. It's the golf fans are missing out. I know some of the television ratings have dropped because of that. You know, the lack of name recognition and stuff. You're absolutely right. Larry, stay right there. We're going to break away and take a very short break. And when we come back, we'll have more with our guest attorney, Mr. Larry Klayman. Back right after this.
Hello. You know me as Larry Klayman, the founder of both Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch. Do not be fooled by the Republican victory in the House of Representatives and in Congress. The fact is, nothing will change for the next 2 years. Joe Biden will continue to be the president or successor if he dies in office of natural causes. He will veto everything the Republicans want. He will not enforce the rule of law. No one will be held accountable. He will not be held accountable for the bribery from communist China, from Russia and Ukraine. We at Freedom Watch must do this. We are your Justice Department. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, support our cause. We are currently trying Joe Biden for bribery and negligent homicide and others. We need your help. Please contribute to Freedom Watch at freedomwatchusa.org, and please get my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America, that you can also get there. God bless you and your family. God save America.
All right, we are back with more Pick Your Politics with our special guest, Mr. Larry Klayman, who you just saw on the commercial before. Larry, what's your thoughts on this? And you've read this. There's been some chatter about the possibility of the LIV Tour having like a Ryder Cup event with the PGA Tour. Is that just pie in the sky?
They already have it. One of the great innovations of the LIV Tour is that not only are there individual competitions, but they have teams. And my client and friend Patrick Reed, who's one of the greatest golfers in the world, won 9 times as a very young guy. He's only 32, Masters champion, 2-time Olympian, etc. Plays on the Aces team with Dustin Johnson, with Peter Uerlein, and also with Pat Perez. They won 5 out of 7 events last year. And so you have these team events. Now they're having uniforms, and it's a little bit like the Ryder Cup. Now, whether LIV decides to do a Ryder Cup sometime in the future remains to be seen. But as it takes hold, you'll see them gathering steam. And the last event, which was held in Mayacopa, Mexico, is on CW Network. CW, by the way, has more viewers than the Golf Channel, many more viewers. The potential is there. It was extremely entertaining. LIV Golf is fashioned for younger people. I'm obviously not one of them, but I still enjoy it. And the golfers actually play golf with music that you can hear at the time. And it's a good time, but they're serious about it. And when the PGA Tour and people like McIlroy and Tiger Woods say, oh, it's just an exhibition. When you're playing for $4 million, an individual purse, and when you're playing for millions of dollars for a team victory at a tournament, believe me, it's not an exhibition.
No, you're
These
trying to make
players
putts.
want to win.
Yeah, right.
They want to win, and so you see fierce competition. The other thing that's great about it is that everybody goes off at the same time. It's a staggered start on each hole, so you don't have the disadvantage that a player that goes off in the morning, if the weather is not quite as good as the afternoon, is a disadvantage.
Right.
Everybody's playing to the same tune, and 54 holes. That's been disparaged by saying, "Oh, 72 holes, really means it's a tournament."
Mm-hmm.
Well, 54 holes is tougher to win because you can't mess up on any round.
Right.
You better have 3 good rounds. You can't have an off day. And then last but not least, and this is the ultimate hypocrisy, is that the PGA Tour is now going to no cuts in its elevated events, and they were slamming that.
Right.
Our little friend Brandel Chambly, who is vicious towards LIV and LIV players, was trashing that. And all of a sudden, when the PGA Tour decides it's going to do the same thing, oh, that's a great idea. It's antiquated. Yeah. So people are beginning to see the hypocrisy. They're seeing the dishonesty of Golf Channel. They're seeing the dishonesty of the PGA Tour and its supporters, and particularly the golf media, because 99.9% of them, not you, Dennis, but others, they're in the hip pocket of the PGA Tour. They depend upon that tour to get access for interviews.
Right. Exactly.
They get free tickets, and they get all kinds of things. And they will destroy anyone who gets in the way of the PGA. They'll try to. They're not going to succeed.
Yeah.
They'll try to.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you say, Larry, to I'd say old timers, people who have been in the game for a long time? They look at the LIV Tour and they go, I'm not really crazy about the music going on. They're real traditionalists. I'm not crazy about the music going on. I don't like these guys playing in shorts and blah, blah, blah. It just, it's just too different for me. How do you combat that?
Well, I can tell you my friend and client Patrick doesn't like shorts. Neither do I. I don't think, as a personal matter, I don't think men should be wearing shorts unless they have good-looking legs.
Yeah, right. I agree.
Look at poor Justin Thomas or Tiger. I mean, spindly legs. It's terrible. But if you have nice legs, why not? What the hell?
Why not? Yeah,
why not?
I agree.
I wouldn't wear them for another reason. It was because there are mosquitoes out there in Florida. Yeah. But if that's your thing, wear the shorts.
Yeah, if you have the flexibility to do that, and I'm sure a lot of these guys welcome it. Also, you talked about Patrick Reed, terrific player, absolutely no doubt. How did you two get together? Because you guys are getting a lot of them together.
Yeah, it's no secret. They saw what I was doing down there in Palm Beach, and they wanted a strong lawyer that would stand up to the forces of those that were trying to destroy not just Patrick, but anybody else like Patrick. And I got to tell you something. These are the nicest, best people I have ever represented as clients. And they're friends at this point. I mean, it's like family. But this is the most rewarding. I'm 71 years old. I've done almost everything legally. Mm-hmm. I've written 3 books. The first one was called Whores. Why I came to fight the establishment. I wasn't talking about the gals down on Las Vegas Boulevard. I was talking about politicians and judges and the such, and lawyers. And then I wrote another one, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, because this has just become entertainment, unfortunately, the degradation of our country. And then the latest one, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America. But, they needed a lawyer that would stand up to the forces, frankly, of evil that were out there, and I will do that. And most lawyers are in it for money. Most lawyers are in it, to scratch themselves on their back. And I think they saw that at Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch, I found in Judicial Watch that I was kind of like the anti-lawyer. I didn't want to be like everybody else. Mm-hmm. I wrote in my first book, Whores, I said, if I had to continue, if I hadn't thought of starting Judicial Watch at the time, I would have rather flipped hamburgers at McDonald's, because I had seen the corruption in the legal system, and today you need a fighter in that legal system, because many of these federal judges, in particular, like you said at the beginning, are politicians in robes, and you have to be able to hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. What, you know, there's a lot of players on all of these tours. I guess what I'm trying to say, Larry, not everybody's perfect. You can always find something negative to say about everybody if you dig hard enough. Why in the world did all of a sudden Patrick pop up of all of these other people?
I think Patrick's a lot like me, frankly. You know, he just tries to mind his own business for the most part. He's friendly. He loves people, you know, and I've seen it. He spends more time than anyone else on the LIV Tour signing autographs. I mean, at the last event in Miami, going back several months, he actually gave his shoes away to a couple young kids and autographed them. But I think people look for those people who they think are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can't speak for Patrick, but I can speak for myself, is that I like people, but I don't go out of my way to try to be liked. I just want to do what I have to do. And that's Patrick. He just wants to be a golfer. He doesn't want to offend anyone or hurt anybody.
Right.
But they find somebody to pick on, and they keep doing it. And the golf media is not terribly bright. They copy what everyone else does. So a defamatory publication written by someone like Shane Ryan then gets republished in umpteen places.
Yeah.
Frankly, they're lazy, and that's how it happens.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. How long do you foresee, if it's possible to even answer this question, do you foresee all of this going? How much further in the future do you see this litigation coming to an end? If that's at all possible answer.
Well, again, as I said before, I hope that all of this can be settled, but in today's world, they don't settle. And here's the problem with lawyers, is that lawyers like to run up bills. I don't. But once they get their hooks in a client, they want to go all the way to trial.
Yeah.
And where they might feel somewhat vulnerable walking up the courthouse steps for the actual trial, then all of a sudden, okay, let's discuss settlement.
Right.
But
Great
lawyers generally milk their clients, and if they're being financed by other entities, they'll milk them. And the lawyers and the judges are the biggest problem to our legal system. The parties are less of a problem, but frankly, the legal system, and there are good judges. This judge I have in Palm Beach is a great judge, very honest guy. He's elected. He's not appointed. He's accountable to the people. So in my book, It Takes a Kind of Revolution, I'm suggesting that we need to fine-tune the Constitution to elect federal judges, not put them on the bench through political campaign contributions and other forms of legal bribery. So this is the problem, is the lawyers and the judges are the biggest problem.
Right.
And if you want to look for a cause, Janice, we can go a little further. For January 6th, which was not an insurrection, it was an uprising. People had seen corruption in government for decades. It was primarily peaceful. I've told the judges in the District of Columbia and the federal court, and there are some good judges in other parts of the country, but that court is just corrupt to the core. I said, if you want to figure out why those people are in front of you and why you're denying them bail and why you're putting them in prison for what you claim was a simple trespass, look in the mirror. You're the ones who are responsible for the state of this country because you have not stood in the stead of the American people and protected us from the other two branches of government and from ourselves.
Yeah.
The judges, federal judges in this country, are the biggest problem. Again, there are some good ones.
Yeah.
But by and large, in the District of Columbia, it's just it's compromised and corrupt, and you can see it. Just read the news.
Interesting. Last question before I let you go. When you win your antitrust, what's going to be the biggest change to come about on the PGA Tour?
Well, it's going to be like the American Football League and the National Football League in the early days. You remember, you're old enough maybe to remember, Dennis, but when Joe Namath won the first Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, when you start seeing victory after victory for LIV, the PGA Tour is going to have to come to the table. The two of them, and I think President Trump was right, will probably ultimately merge and they'll exist side by side. Two different formats in some respects, but there's no reason why they can't exist. To give you an example, I was in London for the arbitration with the DP World Tour back in early February. And because of a temporary restraining order in effect that the arbitrators for sports resolutions put into effect, LIV players have been able to continue to compete on the DP World Tour during the interim when the court, when the judges are deciding what to do as a final matter. They have helped the DP World Tour, and that's the ultimate irony, is that to have Patrick Reed, who was an honorary lifetime member as an American, to have a Lee Westwood, to have an Ian Poulter, to have a Sergio Garcia, to have others compete, helps the DP World Tour, because the PGA Tour, with its carve-out policy, most of these European players would and have defected to the PGA Tour. Rory McIlroy has to be paid large sums of money to even show up in Europe, and he's Irish. He lives in Jupiter, Florida, okay? And many of them the same thing. So to let the LIV players compete improves the game, and it actually helps the DP World Tour. But the DP World Tour, unfortunately, is under the arm of the PGA Tour, which effectively owns them right now.
Yeah, very, very good point. It's all going to be interesting to see how it washes out, Larry, and I'm sure you're going to be victorious in a lot of areas, and a lot of people are going to really, really thank you for it, including yours truly. Anyway, I know that you're super busy. Thank you so much for spending time on the show. We always love having you, and of course, we're going to have you back sooner than later, my friend.
You're great, Dennis. I say you're the best living interviewer now that Barbara Walters has passed on.
I appreciate that. Thanks,
and
Larry.
Her political ideology wasn't my cup of tea.
I hear you. We'll see you soon. Thank you, Larry. All right, Larry Klayman, everybody. Just a super guy, knowledgeable guy, got a lot on his plate, so we're going to see how it all turns out. Anyway, make sure you get with us next week. We're going to start a couple of weeks in a row, as I mentioned, for two great women that are coming in. Both want to be mayor of Las Vegas. And they're going to be some interesting shows. Until then, remember, if you get a chance to vote, your duty to vote, you're going to make a difference. So until then, so long, everybody.